In this week's episode, how did this 12-year-old become South Africa's youngest qualified IT technician? But first, daring, persistent and resourceful, that's how he made a name for himself. Hello and welcome. In South Africa today, many of us are faced with two options. Either to complain about a lack of economic opportunities and do absolutely nothing about it, or create our own. Of course, the latter is extremely intimidating. But Teboho Mafodi's life story shows that although difficult, the journey may be richly rewarding if you are willing to sacrifice and take the pain that comes with it. Construction companies, television production, and IT services. At the center of this business group stands Teboho Mafodi. He represents a new generation of daring South African entrepreneurs.
I call him the Black Richard Branson. He doesn't know that I'm calling me because Teboho wants to be the man, the everything. His branding is important for him, his image.
A stylish businessman who graces magazine covers, there's a profound reason Teboho has made it to this point. He never took the opportunities life gave him for granted. Teboho took us back to Wattville in Benoni to show us where he was born and raised.
I grew up in the most disadvantaged background, and you know, sometimes growing up in those backgrounds, you don't choose your life as a child.
For the majority of his childhood, Teboho lived with his grandfather. His parents simply couldn't handle the financial burden.
I was literally living out of his pension money, and to compensate for what he couldn't do, he would sell cold drinks, sweets, cigarettes and stuff at home.
While selling was a means of survival for Teboho's grandfather, the teenager was gradually getting inspired by these entrepreneurial lessons.
So I remember this other day I went to him and I asked him, can he give me money? I think I want to start a business, you know, and I remember at the time he didn't really have much. He could give me 50 rands. So I went to not far from our township. There's an Indian township called Etonville, where I went to go buy cakes.
Teboho took those cakes to his school and sold them.
As I saw, this thing I bona kontatuaka. So because chelta thing in our house rekisitse, una sa isinye.
Throughout his schooling days, Teboho bought his own books and stationery. But in the year 2000, tragedy struck. He unexpectedly lost his grandfather, the very pillar of his life.
At the time, my mother was still even volunteering at the local clinic, and my brother was not working, so things were really bad. And obviously this one person I was living out of his pension money, and him selling cold drinks and stuff, at least was hiding, you know, some of the poverty that we're really experiencing.
The money he made at school wasn't enough to survive. Teboho had no choice but to drop out and look for a job. His go-getter attitude impressed managers of a Johannesburg IT company. They gladly offered him a contract even though he did not have qualifications or experience.
I continued working, but now I had to go back to school and actually do my matric at night school, so in the very same Wattville. So, and it was quite interesting. It was a challenge now working this side you go to school.
He eventually completed his high school studies while at the same time honing his IT skills. After 4 years of working for several companies, he felt his entrepreneurial edge returning.
I was a project manager in the company, and I started understanding lately, seeing how they do proposals, and it was quite interesting, and it got to a point where I felt, now I want to go on my own. And I decided to take that leap of faith and actually go on my own.
Using his own savings, Teboho capitalized on his business-oriented mind and thorough understanding of computers.
Teboho is very bold. Entrepreneurship, you need the ability to do, you need the wisdom to think, but over and above that, you need boldness to act.
7 years after deciding to go on his own, Teboho's company does anything from construction to producing TV shows and servicing electronics. He's been smart enough to surround himself with knowledgeable people.
We had a discussion the one day about should he buy a big fancy car. And I gave him the analogy of if you spend all this money, you should rather invest the money in your business. One day when you're old, you would want to drive a luxury car.
He fought for his opportunities and made costly mistakes along the way. But most importantly, Teboho Mafodi showed incredible staying power.
If you get born in a poor background, then it's not your fault. But if you die poor in the same situation, then it's your fault.
An ambassador of excellence indeed, Teboho's is the kind of thinking that certainly takes our country forward. As always, we appreciate your feedback. Against all odds at enca.com. You can also be in touch with us on Twitter and Facebook. Still to come, South Africa's computer wizards are getting younger and younger.